All right, guys, so today I present to you my top 5 most underrated whiskeys that I own. Now, these whiskeys are in no particular order, came from about 20 to 25 bottles total, narrowed it down to these top 5. Really, it all came down to how I value these bottles, the nose, the palate, how accessible these whiskeys are, and of course, the price point on these whiskeys as well. Very excited to present to you my top 5 most underrated whiskeys, guys. So without further ado, let's go. All right, guys, so coming in number 1 on the list is Michter's Unblended American Whiskey. So in 2013, master distiller Willie Pratt decided to re-release this unblended American whiskey after nearly 3 years of being off the market. This one comes in at 83.4 proof, which is actually fairly low. It's the lowest proof point of my top 5 whiskeys I'm going to present to you. And the MSRP on this one is anywhere from $40 to $45, which is on the high end of the 5 whiskeys I'm going to present to you as well. I always feel like this Michter's American whiskey is overlooked. They do have several offerings that you could find on shelves. The more popular ones are the barrel strength versions of their bourbon and their rye, all the way up to their Michter's 20 and 25 year offerings. But this to me is one of the most underrated whiskeys that I own. I've gone through several bottles, but this 2018 bottle I've kept. It's absolutely delicious. Something I do plan on trying to hold on to just for a little bit longer. I do find myself sipping on it occasionally. Let's go ahead and get into some tasting notes, guys. Cheers. So some marshmallow sweetness, toffee, butterscotch, like a butterscotch and cinnamon that kind of goes into the back end. Not very high in proof, again only 83.4, but a nice mixture of vanillas, caramels, cinnamons. Then you get that sweetness of that toffee, that butterscotch cinnamon swirl that kind of goes from the middle of the palate and into the finish. I would love to see this done at a barrel strength. I think it would be an absolute home run if they did. Regardless of that, guys, this Michter's Unblended American Whiskey does fall in my top 5 most underrated whiskeys that I own. All right, guys, coming in at number 2 is Woodinville Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Now, one of the things that makes this whiskey unique is the barrel wood is seasoned in the open air, wind, rain, sun, snow for about 18 months. And in turn, what that does is it softens the oak tannins, making for a much smoother whiskey. Now, this one is aged for 5 years, comes in at 90 proof, and the MSRP on this guy is anywhere between $35 to $40. It also won Best Straight Bourbon in the 2020 San Francisco World Spirits Competition. Let's go ahead and get into some tasting notes, guys. Cheers. Yeah, lots of creme brulee, vanilla, caramel on this one. On the back end, you get some of that nutmeg, some bitterness from some dark chocolate. This one it's very, very creamy on the mouthfeel. It's very easy to sip. And again, coming in at $35 to $40, I think that is a bargain for this straight bourbon whiskey. Again, it did win awards in the 2020 San Francisco World Spirits Competition. I just feel like this is it's very underrated. You don't hear a lot of people talking about Woodinville anymore. But guys, that is the reason. This one is coming in at number 2 on my top 5 most underrated whiskeys that I own. All right, guys, so coming in at number 3 is the Wheelhorse Bourbon. Now, this one is made out of the OZ Tyler Distillery. Comes in at 101 proof, aged anywhere between 2 to 4 years, and MSRP on this guy is anywhere between $25 to $30. In 2021, it won the top 20 whiskeys according to Whiskey Advocate, and has also won gold in the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. Now, for the longest time, I thought this was going to be the wild turkey killer. On any given day, it does come out a winner for me on a blind head-to-head. They actually both have won, I guess, depending on the day. They are both absolutely fantastic, but for this, again, coming in at $25 to $30, it is a bargain for what this is. It is a great alternate to the Wild Turkey 101. So if you're looking for something that is similar, a little different in profile. I do highly recommend you try this Wheelhorse Bourbon. Let's get into some tasting those, guys. Cheers. Yeah, there's just a lot more fruitiness to this one. You do get some of those baking spices, a lot of that spiciness, that sweet spice balance, like you do with the Wild Turkey 101. But this one is definitely way more fruit forward. It's more fruit forward on the front of the palate, and then on the back of the palate, you do get some of those baking spices. I feel like as I've had this, some of my tasting notes have actually changed on it from when I did my initial review. But definitely a lot more fruity, like I said, than the Wild Turkey 101. You still get a lot of that balance, though, between that sweet and that spice on the back end. Again, guys, if you're looking for a great head-to-head, buy this Wheelhorse Bourbon. It is 101 proof, just like the Wild Turkey is. It makes for a great alternate, but it also makes for a great head-to-head with the Wild Turkey 101. And that's why this guy comes in at number 3 on my top 5 most underrated whiskeys that I own. All right, guys, coming in at number 4 is Blue Note Juke Joint Whiskey out of BR Distilling Company. It is a straight bourbon whiskey from Kentucky that is aged in Memphis, Tennessee. It comes in at 93 proof. It is MSRP is anywhere between $30 to $35, and it is aged anywhere between 3 to 4 years. I can tell you the first time I tried a sip of this, guys, I absolutely fell in love with it. I think it has an amazing flavor profile to it. It drinks hotter than 93 proof. It probably drinks, in my opinion, around that 100 proof range. But again, for that price point of $30 to $35, again, this one is a fantastic sipper. If you guys have not tried this, or the company's Riverset Rye, I highly, highly recommend you try both of them. Again, I do prefer the Blue Note Juke Joint Whiskey over the Riverset Rye, but both of them are absolutely fantastic. They also come in some single barrel versions as well. Let's go and get into some tasting notes, guys. Cheers. Just like the first time when I tried this guy, it is a complete fruit bomb on the front of the palate. It reminds me of just like Fruity Pebbles. There's some pear in there. There's some orchard fruits, some strawberry on the front of the palate. Into the back, you start to get some of those baking spices, a little bit of pepper that kind of mingles in there into the finish. Again, I think some of the rye in there is what really kind of brings that like pepper note about on the back end. But from the front into the middle of the palate is really just bursting with a ton of fruit flavor. Again, it does drink hotter. In my opinion, drinks hotter than 93 proof, probably around that 100 proof range. But this again is a bottle that just so many people overlook. It is not talked about enough. It needs to be talked about more. It is a absolutely fantastic whiskey from BR Distilling Company, guys. Again, it is a straight bourbon whiskey out of Kentucky that is aged in Memphis, Tennessee. Absolutely fantastic tasting notes on this one. I do plan on getting a second bottle. I've been trying to savor this one as long as I can. Do plan on getting a second bottle, though, guys. But that is why this one comes in at number 4 on my top 5 most underrated whiskeys that I own. All right, guys, so coming in at number 5 on my top 5 most underrated whiskeys that I own is the Knob Creek 9-year Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This one has an MSRP of anywhere between $30 to $35. Comes in at 100 proof, and again, it is age stated for 9 years. So this Knob Creek actually makes up one of 4 bottles that are in the Jim Beam Small Batch Collection. Again, this is a bottle that is just not talked about enough. A lot of people will talk about their higher age stated, the 12, the 15-year. Their single barrel offerings seem to be the most popular. But this 9-year is just, it's not talked about in circles anymore. It is one of the most underrated bottles that I own. The flavors that you get from this, I mean, again, you're talking about a whiskey that is just shy of 10 years old at an MSRP of anywhere between $30 to $35. I've actually seen it at a $25 price point before, which is an absolute steal. Again, very, very underrated. This bottle needs to be talked about in circles. It needs to be brought back to life because this one has just honestly been kicked to the curb. So again, since those 12-year, 15-year age stated, and then the single barrel offerings have come into the market, this one has just kind of been sitting on shelves. I absolutely love this. This is probably my 4th or 5th bottle that I've owned. But let's get into some tasting notes, guys. Cheers. Oak tannins, black pepper, nutmeg, almond, sweet vanilla, rich caramel. This one has, it drinks like it's older than 9 years. The mouthfeel on this one is just, it saturates, gives you some of those classic, Jim Beam notes, a little bit of that almond in there, some nuttiness, some like nice rich caramel, some vanilla, some nutmeg, some oak tannins. Absolutely fantastic offering here from Jim Beam. I love the Knob Creek line. Don't get me wrong, I love the 12-year, the 15-year, and the single barrel offerings are absolutely delicious. But this is an absolutely overlooked and underrated whiskey right here. That is why this one comes in at number 5 on my top 5 most underrated whiskeys that I own. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews and presenting to you my top 5 most underrated whiskeys that I own. All of these whiskeys here hold a lot of value to me. Not only do they have great price points, they're great on the nose, great on the palate. They're easily accessible, whether that is in stores or online. You can find each and every one of these, again, either in a store or online. So I highly recommend you guys go out and try some of these if you haven't had the opportunity to do so. So if you guys are looking for more reviews like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. And until next time, guys, stay dusty.